get started then. And we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Andrea, can we get roll call, please?
Yes. Chair Martinez Beltran.
Here.
Here. Director Klein.
Here.
Tyson.
Here.
Scozola.
Here.
Showalter.
Here.
And thank you. We have all committee members present.
Okay, excellent. Do we have any public comment for matters not on the agenda?
We do. However, before we start, Chair, if you wouldn't mind giving a statement on your participation.
Yes. Just a moment. I am participating remotely under the Just Cause provision of the Brown Act due to travel for official business of another local agency.
Thank you so much. And we do have public comment online. Bruce Carney, whenever you are ready.
Thank you very much. Happy New Year. Welcome to everybody. I just wanted to briefly comment about last night's Carbon Free Mountain View presentation from Josh Newtell, a Stanford PhD candidate. Zoe Elizabeth and Pat Showalter were both in attendance. They may wish to say some words about it, but it was the best presentation on what actions are going to be necessary to get to carbon neutrality that I've ever seen. It was based on research that Josh and about half a dozen other Stanford affiliated individuals created 2 years ago. And I'm going to send it to Andrea with a request that she forward it to all the board members and to any staff members who would be interested. The meeting was recorded on video. It was summarized by AI Companion, and AI Companion did an awesome job. I think it's putting our meeting secretary out of business, Andrea. I hope this doesn't happen.
Never.
Yes, please, she says.
So, yeah, it was fantastic, and I hope you take the time to either watch it or read the summary.
Okay, thank you, Bruce. Appreciate those comments. And I am sorry that I missed it. We'll move to the consent calendar and see if we can get action to approve the minutes. Can I get a motion?
Second. We have a motion from Director Scozola and a second from Director Showalter.
Okay. Well, I guess we need to do roll call, right?
We will, but let's ask the public if there are any comments on this item.
Okay. Do we have any public comment?
No, not on this item.
Okay, great. So then if we can, we've got a motion and a second, if we could get roll call vote.
Yes. Vice Chair Meadows?
Yes.
Director Tyson?
Yes.
Scozola?
Aye.
Showalter?
Yes.
Martinez Beltran?
Yes.
Aye.
Thank you. That carries unanimously.
Excellent. That moves us to the regular calendar, and we have our CEO update. Monica.
So main thing I wanted to talk to about today is kind of giving you a recap or a debrief from the special study board workshop that we had in December. Thank you all to you who attended. I thought it was a lot of fun and also informative as well. And for those of you who weren't able to attend, we've been trying to reach out to you directly to get your input as well. So I'm going to hand it over to Justin and Zoe to give you a quick recap and maybe talk a little bit about next steps. And if you had any questions about the process or the next steps or what else is coming, feel free to ask as well. So with that.
Great. Yeah, so this was from the special session of the board on December 12th. The workshop had 10 board members and alternates in attendance to further discuss strategies to meet SVCE's mission across rate design, portfolio cleanliness, and local program budgets and focus. These built on the presentations on the financial levers and the decarb roadmap refresh that we covered in the regular December board meeting. Attendees gave feedback and input on potential trade-offs that SVCE might make in the future in response to financial constraints. And we collected a lot of reactions to different approaches and priorities for the board and for our community. So as Monica said, we really appreciate those who attended. Some key takeaways for the financial levers portion included emphasis that decarbonization is SVCE's core mission. It's important to our communities, that a balanced approach to our decisions on this front is critical for good governance. The importance of having rates below the alternative for our customers to make sure that it's obvious for why folks can should remain with SVCE. But we also discussed the idea of creating differentiated rate options. I think there was some interest in continuing to explore that for customers who prioritize differently between clean and cost. And as always, the importance of good storytelling and messaging and communications to our customers and communities so that they understand what their options are and what their investments are going towards. There was more than that, but I have to curtail it in the interest of summary, so I'll pass it to Zoe for the other part.
Yeah, absolutely. So in addition to the overarching stories, where we also heard the importance of real focusing on the benefits as a local agency and leveraging that authority. We heard about innovation and kind of being an innovative agency, but not on the bleeding edge of innovation. Wanted to kind of capture those for some of the synthesis. And then we also forced everybody into a trade-offs conversation after we, with the caveat that everyone knows that ultimately everything is about balance and things aren't black and white, but we wanted to walk the group through some of the trade-offs that we're always thinking about because a dollar can only be spent in one place, one time. So we talked about, for example, income graduated rebates versus the same level of rebates and how that translates to different levels of decarbonization. We talked about the need for very deep decarbonization investments versus investments that can speed and scale. Really quickly, we talked about the trade-offs between offering renters benefits, whereas property owners have the most ability to make decisions. And I'd say on all of those, the theme was interesting too. There's pretty strong alignment across the groups and in the follow-up sessions. And they're really, if I was going to say kind of one theme through all of those was maximizing those investments and the return on investments in terms of emissions and moving as quickly and delivering benefits as quickly as possible. So we'll be taking that input. Again, none of this was decision-making. It was just informing what we do next and also places where we might need to bring back additional analysis to get into these trade-offs more deeply. We'll be putting together that information for a larger stakeholder workshop actually in February, and then coming back to the executive committee and the board several times over the next few months, kind of in tandem with the question on, or the discussions on financial levers.
Any questions?
Yeah, what do you mean by larger stakeholder workshop? Who would be the larger stakeholders?
Yeah, so for this next workshop that we're planning for February, we will have, we'll be targeting our community leaders group, which is a diverse group of, I would say, environmental and climate groups as mostly, there's also youth groups there, and there's somebody, multifamily property owner who's part of that, and our member agency working group. We may then do a later follow-up group with it's targeted more on property owners and kind of a technical group, but that's the next one that's coming up.
And if I can add on the financial levers side, it's good timing because we're doing our regular annual customer survey at the moment, or we're about to send it out. And so based on some of the questions in discussion, we've added some new questions to the annual survey as well this year that'll give us some more insight on customer preferences and priorities that we can bring out to the floor for that part.
Thank you.
I have a quick question, Monica. I just wondered, and we always talk about it, so I'm sure it was mentioned, but what would be our feedback loop on these? You know, I heard Zoe say maximize investment on emissions and moving quickly on benefits. Is that, does staff think that's a 6-month feedback loop? Is that a year feedback loop to understand, what changes we're doing and what's working and what's not?
Do you want to just give a little bit of an overview of what, when you're bringing the decarb roadmap, that's what's going to be in that?
Yeah. So part of the decarb roadmap, which will set targets and strategy, will also include an updated process for decarbonization programs reporting. I imagine that we'll continue to do that on an annual basis as an overarching portfolio to see how we're moving towards our targets.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you. Did you have more, Monica?
That was it.
I didn't hear you. Did,
That's it, sorry. I have nothing further unless there's any other questions or anything in general.
No question, but just a comment. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was very interactive. I'm sorry more people couldn't be there to get that, but the people we had were very engaged. I really liked the tools, the moving your dot on the dial. I'm gonna remember that for other approaches because I thought it was effective and I thought it was a good use of time.
okay. Any other questions for Monica? Seeing none, then I'll move to number 3, which is to elect a chair and vice chair of the 2026 Executive Committee, and that's Andrea.
Thank you. I'll just ask for public comment on that last item before moving on to the
Oh, I'm
next.
sorry. Yes.
Public comment on item 2. No hands raised for that. All right. Item 3. So the selection of the chair and vice chair. So new year, new committee. And so today we're going to select who will lead us for this next year. This is a 1-year term. It can be anybody who serves on this committee. In terms of nominations and the process for selection, we'll open the floor for anybody who wishes to serve in this role or for anybody to nominate somebody else. Each person who is interested will be given an opportunity to speak to their interest. If more than one person is interested, we will do a roll call vote by name. Given this is a 6-member body, we'll need a vote of 4 people to get a majority. And so we will do that until a majority is reached, and then a ratification vote will be needed to make that final selection for either of these roles. Are there any questions on the process?
Chair, I'm ready to make a nomination if that's okay. She's muted. We can't hear you, Yvonne.
Yes. Member Meadows.
Okay, I would like to nominate Pat Showalter as chair of the executive committee in 2026.
I would second that.
But does she accept the nomination?
Oh, yes.
Once she heard my
Good question.
Yes, it would be an honor. I've been on SVCE for 2 years as a director and 1 year as an alternate. And I feel like I've learned a great deal and would like to step up and be more involved. And this would be an excellent way to do that. And so I'm kind of a policy and a governance wonk. I think that those are both characteristics that are valuable for that sort of role.
Okay, so, oh, sorry, I think are you doing this part, Andrea, or?
I can facilitate. Is there anybody else interested in the role of chair?
Well, I did raise my hand. I am interested in chair. I would then, ask for vice chair. I did chair it last year, and so I don't want to be a chair hog. And I think it's important that, everybody who's interested gets an opportunity to do that. So I'll go ahead and support our nomination for chair and would ask to nominate myself for vice chair.
Great. Okay, so we can either proceed with the roll call vote for chair, or if there is anybody else for vice chair interested. Okay.
I put my name in as an alternative if anybody wants. I'm also happy not to be a vice chair hog. So, but I thought we would vote for.
Yeah, we can take just the vote for the chair. Any public comment on this item? No public comment? Okay, we'll go ahead and do the vote on the chair for Director Showalter. I have the motion from Director Meadows, the second from Director Tyson, and I will proceed with the roll call vote. Director Meadows.
Yes.
Squazzola.
Aye.
Martinez Beltran.
Aye.
Fine.
Aye.
Tyson.
Yes.
Showalter. That motion carries unanimous. All right.
I think you start running the meeting.
Yeah.
So we're moving on to the discussion of the vice chair. And I believe what you mentioned was that each person's got an opportunity to make a brief statement. Martinez Beltran, Mrs. Martinez Beltran, would you like to make a brief statement?
Sure. I'm interested in vice chair, as you all know. I, was interested in doing vice chair for the board, but I'm now just looking for a way to continue to stay engaged and work with the staff and continue to work towards being, in leadership for the board. And I think this is a great way. I really enjoyed last year getting a chance to work with the staff and understand more the inner workings, I guess, of SVCE. You do get a chance to brief with, with the staff and ask some more questions. And I think it's a great opportunity to do. So that's why I would be happy to do vice chair. I've looked at all of the dates and, asked staff about them and what proposed things can do. And so I am available for those. I think we have a conflict with our annual conference, but I'm sure we'll be talking about that. But most all of those look like they're doable. So that's my pitch.
Thank you. Mayor Meadows.
Or Vice Chair Meadows, depending on which hat.
That's right. Get the hat straight.
Right, that it's hard. So I'm glad that you will be our chair this year of the executive committee, and I'm honored to serve as vice chair of SVCE. I believe in rotating through and giving as many people experience as possible. And frankly, neither Director Martinez Beltran or myself are new to this. So, but if there is no one else who's going to nominate or be nominated, then I would say that I'm happy to serve as vice chair. I did not offer myself as chair of executive committee, despite our operating suggestions to do that, because I do have quite a bit going on this year. And so I thought Chair Showalter would be an excellent person. So I would leave it up to my colleagues, and I think there might be a comment or a.
I have a comment. I'm a little sad that no one nominated me for vice chair. But I will self-nominate myself. I do think that, obviously I'm very excited about our organization. So many ways the last year, I had 100% attendance record for the executive committee. I also have chaired last year the legislative action committee. I've been on there the 2 years previous to that as well. And I've been on the finance committee for 3 years. So I feel like I definitely have a nice, well-rounded perspective of our organization at this point. And yep, it would be new for me. So I'd be happy to take the role of vice chair for the executive committee if so pleased to my colleagues.
So Chair, I would like to withdraw my self-nomination.
Okay, all right. So we have two individuals, and I think that I understood the order. We will just have a roll call vote.
Yes, a vote by name. Yvonne, your vote between you and Director Scazola?
Me.
Director Scazola?
I do adore you, Scazola.
Right back at you. But I'm voting for myself as well.
Okay, Director Tyson?
Scazola.
Thank you. Meadows?
Scazola.
Showalter?
Scazola.
Thank you. Klein?
Scazola.
Okay, thank you. That is 5 votes Scazola and 1 for Yvonne.
I'm honored, thank you.
All right, well, congratulations.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. And I want to say that everyone will be on the executive committee, and that in itself is major opportunity to contribute
Absolutely.
to this.
Chair, can I ask, say a quick bit also. So thank you for everyone who put your names in. To me, especially this committee allows the executive team, both staff and the executive committee, to see how people run meetings. And this exactly what the chair said. It's like, okay, this is everyone here has a good opportunity to help shape the organization. But what I do appreciate is for this, and thank you, Chair Showalter and Vice Chair Scazola, for taking on this role from an organizational standpoint. I do think it's important to see how people run meetings, and it's not just the mantle of chair, but this interplay. And this is a publicized meeting, but it's one step conceivably towards being running the board meeting itself. But I just want to thank you both for standing up for 2026. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I have to say that my philosophy of running meetings is to strike a balance between the formality that's required in a public meeting and the informality that is appropriate for whatever group is listed. Like if we were a board of 20, we would have to have a very, very formal meeting. Since we are a vote of 6, we will not have to be quite so formal. But at the same time, there are many rules you gotta follow, and I'm sure you'll help me make sure I follow them. Okay, so do we need any, we've had a vote. So I think we move on to.
If we could just have one last final vote to solidify that selection.
One last final vote, and do we need to have any public comment?
We've already opened public comment.
We had that for the vice, for the chair. Okay, all right, so,
I will make the motion to appoint Chair, let's say Director Showalter as chair and Director Scazola as vice chair for the executive committee for 2026.
Second.
okay, we have a motion by Klein and a second by Tyson. So I think it's appropriate we have a vote.
Thank you. Director Meadows.
Yes.
Scazola.
Aye.
Showalter.
Yes.
Tyson.
Yes.
Klein.
Yes.
Martinez Beltran.
Yes.
Unanimously.
Very good. Okay, so now we move on to 4, which is to select a regular meeting schedule for the 2026 executive committee meetings. And this is an action item. Sandra.
Yes. All right, so we have a busy year ahead of us, and so we wanted to identify our meeting dates. So we proposed to keep generally the same schedule of the 4th Fridays of every month at 10 a.m. And there are a couple of exceptions. I did send out a draft of these dates, and there are some with some conflicts. So I just wanted to first show what we have. And then the conflicts that have already been identified are potentially May, because there is a long holiday weekend ahead of that. You'll notice that staff has proposed that we don't have a meeting in June, and instead we meet in July. We do not have a board meeting in July, as a reminder. We've done this so that staff has an opportunity to bring some items to you in July that would be going to August to provide some feedback, but we are open to changing that if there are conflicts. And in September, Yvonne had mentioned that there is a Leave California Cities annual conference and expo, so if that might cause a problem as well. So those are 3 that we definitely wanted to address, but if there are any others also that you'd like to bring up, we can discuss those as well.
Okay, does anybody have any others they would like to bring up?
I can make all of those except for May.
Well, I noticed that the February 27th is the same day as the State of the Valley.
That's why it's at 2 p.m.
Yeah, that's why we changed it to the afternoon.
Ah, I didn't catch that.
Sorry. We have been talking in the background.
Very good. All right, okay, so any directors have any more comments?
Well, I would suggest that we take July off because most of us go dark in July. And I think that's what you may have been either open to or suggesting, Andrea.
What would be the alternative to the July? What's the date? June what?
Let me check.
It's like the 25th or something, right?
June 26th. June 26th would be the 4th.
August?
4th Friday.
Yes, June 26th, 10 a.m.
That would work better.
That would work. That would work.
Better for me too.
Yeah, I think that does work good, actually.
Does June 26th work for you, Ron?
Doesn't look like I have anything at this point, no. The one that May is on the 27th. So I may have a board meeting.
Was that May 22nd?
March.
March 27th, okay,
You said it was the 27th, not the 20th, right?
correct. March
Okay,
27th,
Yeah.
10 a.m.
Okay, all right, well,
Did we get an alternative to May?
Not yet. Is there a conflict for others in May?
No.
No, I'm good.
So it's just George.
It's just me.
Right.
That's fine.
Okay, so, sounds like,
Where do we stand with March? I wasn't following.
Is there any other conflicts in March so far? I think it's just Director Martinez Beltran.
Can you put the date, can you put the date up?
March was the
27th, which is fine.
March 22nd.
Yeah, you don't need to change it. I just don't know if I'll have one. I heard, George say he might not be able, I'm just letting people know.
Earlier in that week is the National League of Cities, but it's over usually Wednesday, 20th, so.
Wait,
So
I thought
are we
NLC
talking
was the
March?
18th.
I'm talking Cal cities.
Monday, starts Monday, the 18th. The 18th, the 19th, and then the 20th is the day on. Okay, so that,
Were you talking, was that March that you were talking about? Because we're proposing the 27th, right?
Right.
So-
That's on them.
Right, that's on.
That's what's proposed now.
Right.
Okay.
That's fine. That's fine.
Because I was gonna say there's a conflict on the 20th, if that's what people are talking about on March 20th. For us girls anyway.
Oh.
The Margaret's
okay.
next women's lunch thing.
We want this that.
Well,
And I'm sure you guys are invited.
for many reasons.
For many reasons.
With February, March, April, May, June, we're changing it 2026. July, August is good, September, we need another date. Assuming most of you are at Cal Cities?
Yeah, that week is for me 25th of September. Cities Association, yes. I wasn't planning to do that right now, but. No, that, I might have a conflict that week after all. Previous week, is that better for people?
Which month is this?
September.
September 18th. Is that
18th.
better?
Does that work for us? What days are it?
It is that.
I don't know. I'd have to look closer, I think, to September than now. I didn't even.
Let's,
Do it in the afternoon. We're having a sidebar conversation. We have our staff coming in that week, but if we held the EC meeting in the afternoon, it would be fun.
the 18th would be better for me.
The 18th work for you, John?
Could do that for now. Yeah, sure.
Okay, so we'll say 18th and
2
then
p.m. start time.
2 p.m. Okay, with you guys?
2 p.m. I thought, we're not doing, isn't it 10 to 12?
It is, however, staff has a conflict on that day, so we were trying to
Oh, I see. Okay.
available in the afternoon of the September 18th.
I mean, at this point, I think so. We usually do one of our sessions on housing, but I don't know. So that's fine to go with it now. Yeah.
We have 5 at least. So
Yeah.
And I'm going to quickly flash on the screen now what we're looking at.
Excellent. I was just going to ask for that.
So
Well, you're
this,
fast.
We'll send that to. Okay. All right, yeah.
7th.
We'll put a hold on your calendars too, by the way.
Okay, so since we've had a pretty robust discussion about this, is there any public comment?
No public.
No public comment. All right. So bringing it back for a motion.
So move that we accept the edited calendar.
Second.
Okay. Vote?
Director Tyson,
Yes.
Meadows,
Yes.
Showalter,
Yes.
Squizzola,
All right.
Martinez Beltran,
Yes.
Aye.
Thank you, that carries unanimously.
Excellent. Okay, now we're on to item 6, input on timing to solidify proposals.
I think we need 5 first.
We need 5. That was 4. I crossed it off. Changes to the hybrid meetings policy. That's a very important part of this meeting, to incorporate SB 707. And I believe that is Michael Callahan.
Yes, thank you, and good to be here with everybody. So I'm going to talk today about some changes that came in the law. Just this last session, SB 707 was passed and signed into law and adjust some things in the Brown Act. And I'm sure you're hearing about it a bit in your other capacities, but we've got our part to play as well. Next slide. And so there's a couple big pieces here. There's some remote meeting options that are in there, and we'll talk about those. That's sort of the focus of this session. There's also there's some options to do translation. And since we're a JPA, it doesn't appear that those translation requirements apply to us, but we are still examining them and considering which ones make sense for us to do given sort of our operations. And we have some of these things in place already, like some translation options on the website. And I'm sure if anybody wanted to bring a translator to a meeting, we'd be happy to accommodate them. So, I think we'll likely be complying with most of these things, even though they aren't technically required of us on the translation side, but they aren't really the focus of what we're proposing to change in the policy. Next slide. So in terms of recommended inclusions in the policy, there's a few different options. There's the hybrid meeting option, which exists today, and we will keep that. There's also an option for accommodations for folks that have a disability under the ADA. We'll have that included in the policy just for clarity. And then there's this remote participation for just cause, which has taken sort of the AB 2449 options and sort of consolidated them and kept them going, where you can still, as Martina Beltran's is doing this meeting twice a year, you can attend remotely without calling in from a publicly noticed location. There's a new similar option for multi-jurisdictional bodies, which allows remote meetings. And the way that I conceptualize this, it's sort of like the traveling or vacation style remote participation. And if someone is, out of the service area, away from the publicly noticed locations twice a year, they can utilize this and call in again from a not publicly noticed location. And so, if we had done this in a recent meeting where we ultimately had to cancel the meeting because the remote location wasn't able to join, if we had that as one of this type of remote location, we would have been able to continue the meeting. And so it seems useful for us to include this in the policy and sort of nudge directors that are traveling, not on official business, but to utilize this kind of option to the extent that they are traveling. And then there's one other option that we are not recommending to include. That's some remote meeting options for subsidiary bodies. And that just feels a little impractical. It requires electeds to be in person unless other things apply. And it requires an extra board meeting to make decisions based on if you leverage those rules. So it doesn't seem like a good fit for us. And so we aren't recommending to include those. And next slide. And so that's it. That's the recommendation. We're recommending to include the hybrid meetings, the accommodations for disabilities, the remote participation for just cause, and the multi-jurisdictional remote meetings in the hybrid meeting policy. And if we get that direction today, we'll put together, those revisions to the policy and bring it to the next board meeting when we're able to. Any questions or comments?
Okay, does anyone have any questions?
I do, Chair.
Okay, Director Meadows.
Okay, thank you. So one question, says in the staff report that AB 2449 sunsetted on January 1st this year. I wasn't aware of that. Okay, yeah, that's the case, I assume, since you've included it there?
It was consolidated and revised. And so those pieces in the Brown Act that were previously created by 2449, those were changed by SB 707, moved around a little bit. The substance of them effectively remains. It's just no longer in the same form as it was for 2449.
Okay, and consolidated included. And then my understanding is that the provisions that we're talking about and considering are supposed to take effect by July 1st. Is that correct?
we're required to adopt a resolution by July 1st in order to implement these things. And so our goal is to adopt the resolution sooner than July 1st, but we would have until July 1st to adopt it.
Okay. And regarding disabilities, and this is a level of detail I'm sure you'll address in the policy itself, but will you require a documentation? And I remember I offered documentations a year ago and nobody wanted them. I would have felt better if HR or somebody had taken those because it is something that's prone to abuse. So as you put together the policy, I would ask, having experienced and availed myself of disability 2449, think about that piece so that we can serve those who need it, but not enable those who might abuse it. And I'm not suggesting there is anybody, but you never know.
Isn't the 2 times a year kind of automatically put a lid on that abuse?
No, not ADA. It doesn't, there's no lid
there's
to
no limit on
ADA.
that. Yes.
This is why it's really important, actually.
Yeah, and I will take that under consideration, welcome other thoughts on that. I think, we're cognizant of sort of both sides, right? The sort of privacy side and not wanting to be too intrusive in terms of what we're double checking and retaining as a record. But then on the other side, as you mentioned, the sort of want to, keep folks using it the way it's intended to be used. So we'll definitely take that under consideration and welcome additional thoughts on that as well.
All right, thank you. That's my questions.
Director Martinez Beltran.
Thank you. Michael, I just wanted you to explain this multi-jurisdictional body remote meetings. I'm not really sure, what does that mean? I see that you say you're not recommending it for the policy, but what exactly does that say, or what is it about?
Yeah, great question. So the multi-jurisdictional body remote meetings, that piece I actually am recommending to include, and that's intended for JPAs and entities that cover multiple jurisdictions. And really, there's other requirements to it that I haven't included here just to keep the list short, but they're things that we're doing already. Like you have to have teleconferencing options. You have to have a majority of folks participating from a single location in the service area. What this does is it's sort of a new thing, which if a director is 20 miles or more away from a publicly noticed location, then they can utilize this option to call in without noticing a location. They can do it twice a year. Again, it would have alleviated sort of the issue we had a few meetings ago where we had to end the meeting because the remote location wasn't able to join. If we still had a quorum and somebody was calling in under this, but we weren't able to connect with them, we would still be able to continue the meeting because we wouldn't be cutting off any public's access to the meeting. And so that one we are encouraging to include. The one below at the very bottom for subsidiary bodies, that one we're not proposing to include. And that seems to be intended for committees often that don't have sort of final decision-making authority, allowing them to meet remotely and not have anybody physically present, but having a physical location where the public could come and where there's at least one staff member. But that's a little tricky. There's extra rules and limitations, and it requires sort of a first reading at the board and a discussion, and then you have to bring it to a subsequent board meeting for an action, based on a recommendation for this committee. And so it seems like it would ultimately create more drag than efficiency, and so it doesn't feel like the right fit for us. But happy to consider it if the board members have a different perspective.
No, I'm fine with that. I just wanted to understand what it was. Thank you, though.
Great. Understand.
I had a follow-up question from Director Meadows or Vice Chair Meadows' question. So the July deadline, Mike, I know that we're bringing something to the board next month, and the intent is to bring revisions to our hybrid policies that you all adopted. But are we also planning to bring a resolution to adopt the requirements under this new law? Is that what you want in one swoop, right?
Exactly. We're going to adopt the changes to the policy via resolution. And so we'll kind of get two birds with one stone in that way.
Okay, and then my other question is a question to the chair of the board. Would it be okay to put this on consent, or do you want a discussion on the regular agenda?
I want it as a discussion on the regular agenda. Okay. It's not just so if I may, through the chair. So to me, and I have several questions, but I think it's important because there's procedure and policy that needs to be captured here as well. And I'll just move on to questions and other things. what goes on the agenda if a director wants remote participation for just cause or the second or the multi-jurisdictional body remote, and what the expectations are as opposed to the old Brown Act. And when capturing this, I would, for an agenda item to the full board, capturing the old way still works, but also what you inflict on this organization if communication stops, and nothing wrong with the old communication way. But as far as remote participation for just cause, that isn't a public meeting, that isn't a public remote location, correct? Or is it?
For just cause, it is not a publicly noticed location.
Just double checking, because conceivably, for a lot of official travel, many of us have staff reserve a conference room at a hotel to actually conduct a Brown acted remote meeting of somebody. So I just wanted to, I think it's important to clarify, and this is why I want this brought to the board. From that standpoint, leading to my next question.
Maybe some examples is what we could provide, like.
Correct, because there's also the expectation that you'll be there at the meeting, at the beginning of the meeting for this, an example of what the directors should be stating for the record. So the canned wording, pre-prepare that for us. And I know that I have full faith in our clerk to send that to us, but that expectation just to smooth the process down, I think is important. So it's like, here's the different options if you're traveling and are going to miss the meeting. Here's, and here's what issues you're taking. How will this be tracked from a clerk standpoint to make sure that someone isn't, and maybe also from a reporting standpoint of how often this is being utilized for the education of the board, but also making sure that they don't fall into like, oh, I requested 3 multi-jurisdictional body remote meeting requests in the year. And I just want to make sure that that's all. Just wondering about that standpoint.
Yeah. We do track attendance, and in the past using AB 2449, we would note that as well. So we have record of how many times somebody has used it.
Okay, but I think
I understand what you're saying. I think we need maybe when somebody requests it and we make it, we publicize it on our agenda, whatever, we also note this is the second time this person is using it.
yes.
Or this is the first time when this person, so that everybody is aware, including the person who's asking,
Yeah.
in case they lose track.
And maybe that's a note, and maybe conceivably that's a notice after roll call. It's so that
We'll adopt that as part of the policy.
then it becomes part of the notes or part of the meeting minutes, and it's also educational for the rest of the board. But it's that sort of, to me, I think it's important, especially now that we have multiple options to take meetings remote. And
can I just a follow-up question on that?
Sure.
I'm assuming this is a calendar year restriction, Mike, is that right? It's not a fiscal year, it's a calendar year thing, right?
Yeah, I think it just per year. I'm not sure. I'll double check. I don't think it specifies.
that was all my questions, Sharon. Thank you.
Okay, Vice Chair Scolza, did you have a?
Yeah, I really did want clarification, not for any particular reason, but when a board member is traveling, it's, personal or their own business, would that still fall under the remote participation for just cause? Or
That would not, if it's personal travel, that would not fall under the just cause, but it would fall under the multi-jurisdictional remote meeting option. So that's sort of the new addition for that feature. And it's a separate twice a year limit. And so you can do 2 under the just cause and 2 separately under this multi-jurisdictional body remote meeting.
got it. Thank
Mike,
you.
just to further clarify though, you could still participate more than 2 times, you just have to notice it, right? We just have to do the public notification within the 72 hours.
For both just cause and remote meet and the multi-jurisdictional body, those are each limited to twice per year period.
Right.
We could do, say again?
Director Scazola chose not to exercise either one of those options, but instead say he was in Southern California and he posted the meeting, then it's just
Yes,
regular.
meeting.
Yeah, regular.
yes.
Great.
There's no limit, no limit on the number of those per year. That's correct.
Appreciate that made it really clear for me. Thank you.
I do have one more question, and that is remote participation for just cause. That is the one that or it's the similar one that we've used kind of for an emergency. You know, like you don't
Yes,
know within the, and that still works. You don't have to know 72 hours. I mean, say you get ill, but you're well enough, or you have something that's contagious like COVID. You can't come in, but you're well enough to do the meeting. That's still, you don't need 72 hours before, right? You can just do that on the fly.
not for the just cause, you are correct, but you do need to provide advance notice for the multi-jurisdictional remote sort of vacation style participation because it has to be included on the agenda.
Okay, all right.
Yes, that's why I didn't catch that earlier. I thought, sorry, Chair.
Is that right, Mike? If someone is using the multi-jurisdictional body remote, then it's not going to be noticed, right?
The location,
will not be noticed.
not the location, but that they are using it will be noticed on the agenda.
Okay, yes, that I understand.
So in terms of the multi-jurisdictional, I understand that applies here, and that would not apply. So now I'm thinking ahead to my city and my other organizations, to say a city would not have that option of that multi-jurisdictional body. Is that correct? Because that's sure a tasty option.
That is my understanding. I would encourage you to consult with the city attorney on that, but that is my understanding.
Certainly would do that. And then also, I'm unclear, did AB 2449 end? Because it's right now, if so, then we're in limbo until we adopt SB 307. Is that what I heard?
707.
That I confirm that we do not need to adopt the sort of 2449 like just cause requirements. Those are just part of the Brown Act and we can leverage them today. The thing we really need to adopt is if we were going to start doing hybrid meetings, we need to adopt the teleconferencing rules, but we already have that in policy. We would need to adopt the multi-jurisdictional body rules. And so that's sort of like the incremental thing. And then I want to add some clarification stuff like on the disability accommodations, and yeah. So I'll be clarifying things, but the only thing we technically need to adopt by resolution before we can do it is the multi-jurisdictional body option.
All right. So I'm getting a sense of this here. My final question is official travel on who's official basis. So any entity. So I'll give you an example. I'm going to go on a trip with Rotary to visit a project we funded in Vietnam, and it doesn't affect this meeting here. And so is that not? It's not nothing to do with Silicon Valley Clean Energy, but it's in the context of my being a public official and having some presence in this other country. What would you call that?
Yeah, my understanding is that it needs to be travel on behalf of another local or state agency that you're a member of. So on behalf of that agency. So if it is a local or state agency, then absolutely that would be allowed. And if there's, if you want to drill into sort of the specific examples or hypotheticals, happy to do that as well.
Okay, I don't want to waylay us, but I was hoping for a better answer, but I'd like to test the margins here.
I have, Chair, I don't know. I have another issue. Yeah. Yeah.
Looks like we have two more questions at
Yeah.
least.
Yes.
Yvonne, I think you were first.
Thanks, Chair. So my understanding, Michael, is if it's on your city business, so if it's a committee that you're assigned to by your city, then that would qualify, George. Is that correct, Michael? Would you also say that that's?
It's a good question. I haven't examined that issue, but happy to look at that and speak to it when we bring the policy forward for the board, or circle back and offline, either way.
Okay, that was just that was what was explained to me. And then the other thing was I wanted just a comment on what Monica, that was my question. This has nothing to do with noticing and doing remote meetings. This is really only when you're not noticing or you're doing the multi-jurisdictional, and that's where it's the limited to the 2 years. Got it.
Yes.
Thanks.
Yes.
Me? No.
Are you done?
I got it.
Oh, okay, my turn, sorry. So it just occurred to me, and we've been doing it a little differently in our council where actually each time I availed myself of the 2449, I had to ask my colleagues' permission to participate in the meeting via that method. And I think that is or was part of it. And I'm going to suggest that that might be something worth considering, because there could be someone on the board or whatever. I mean, we've heard of it happening in certain jurisdictions where someone is traveling and then they shut off the connection. I'm not talking about.
No, I know.
No, yeah. And so if someone asks, let's say from an airport, hypothetically speaking, to participate in one of our meetings, I would think that if this is in the law, that the board should have the ability to say yay or nay to that report, that remote participation. So it's just something to consider, and my colleagues may know what I'm referring to.
Dr. Klein?
Sure, so, and it's, I think, conceivably, Michael, have some comment about conceivably what the chair could do, you know, from a city standpoint, you know, pretty much as long as a council member says that they're going to be missing a meeting for whatever reason, it's an excused absence. And council would not call it an unexcused absence in any case. That being said, if it was just, they don't show up meeting after meeting at a certain point, it's like, this is now an unexcused absence because they refuse to come to council anymore for whatever reason. And there's other, depending upon, you know, we know of all kinds of different cases around the state that these sorts of things have happened. Maybe I don't think codifying that the board needs to vote on allowing this remote access. It's a whole other thing if it's the old Brown Act action that is, you know, the old Brown Act noticing of this is where I am, that's already been on the agenda and they have to be a public meeting and all that. Utilizing the two new options, or to me, there is a concept that a board could decide that either they're overusing this or I can't envision that because they're limited to basically two occurrences of each. But it's something to think about from a either board policy or a chair. You know, it's like, because you would take the comment that I'm remote, you would take roll call, and the chair at that point could conceivably take an action that I call this as an unexcused absence, but there's too many hypotheticals here that I don't want to get into. But that's something at least you should look at, because it's something as a mayor for multiple years now that it's like we assume an unexcused absence, but there's been an excused absence. There's been a few times that it's like, yeah, I would almost like to call this an unexcused absence because it's either repetitive or they didn't take the time to inform staff or the chair that they're not showing up. But that's a whole other
Right, and
ball of wax.
maybe just, Mike, I don't remember what we put in the operating rules and regulations that the board just approved on absences, but I think there was a whole section in there about absences and the action that the
But I
board.
don't know how this
Yeah, so
plays.
we probably have to do a little bit of
Comparison,
comparison, and we
yeah.
might have to modify the operating rules and regulations in the future if that's the
Right.
case.
But most important for me is getting this move forward. I think this is valuable. Let's go to the other. So we've talked all about remote meetings. Translation, which, from my city, so there's several things translation. One is PDFs, one is websites, and then meetings themselves. For meetings themselves, our city basically pays an AI translation tool that automatically translates. I do think that there's value in that. Not that we need to necessarily spend the money or go down that road, but I do think that that has a lot of value to break down some of these barriers from language. It simultaneously you can listen and read along or listen along in 60 plus different languages, which is a positive thing. Translation is, I hear, 90% accurate, but at least you're getting the flow of the meeting. And then as far as PDFs and websites, and that becomes a bigger question for the clerk and from a legal standpoint, from an organization. I do think that there's value in that. Whether or not you post them or whether or not you just say you can translate this automatically becomes the question. But I know that there are, April 2026 deadlines for certain language and ADA or ADA compliance. But it rapidly ties into other languages. And I'll just leave that out there. We're not from this, what's being brought to council or brought to the board, sorry, isn't undertaking any policy changes relating to translation at this time, correct?
Correct.
Perhaps what you're suggesting is that maybe we look into whether it's a value add for our community to provide translation services for board meetings and other. I think that we have been looking at that. And so, that's something that Pam and her team has been looking at. And we can certainly bring that back to the board in terms of where we see an opportunity here or not.
I appreciate that. And conceivably when it's brought to the board, at least, a subset, I don't want this to divulge. The main focus is remote meetings and noticing and policy. Translation secondary, but we should at least say staff is evaluating it.
Staff does do a lot of translation services for marketing materials, by the way.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, all right, so I think we've had quite a robust question and answer and discussion section of this. Is there anything else that anybody wishes to say to the committee? Saying none, I'm going to ask if there's any public comment on this. Anybody have public comment? Okay, so you need an action, and I'm not sure what the action was, guidance, or you needed a motion, or what's the action that you want from us?
Be a recommendation to adopt the additional hybrid meeting
There
options.
it is.
I'll move to adopt that.
Second by Klein.
And I would just like to state that this is a real complex issue, and we all face it as we take part in regional boards. And it's very helpful to educate us about this. So I know I, for one, appreciate you taking the time, because it's kind of, these rules are kind of arcane, and they're not necessary. They're just the rules. You have to learn the rules. And so we need help with getting educated as these rules change. So this is important for the process.
And I'll just second that. And thank you, Michael, for undertaking this. And I know it's not just the new law, but trying to codify and educate our board was one of the reasons why I wanted this brought back early this year, to make sure that everyone's on the same page and, conceivably, especially with some of the new options, making it as easy as possible for people to participate, or to make sure that we're doing everything legally that we should be doing. And it is that education. It's a moving target on some of these laws. So,
it's really moved a lot from the pandemic on. It's moved a lot.
Thank you.
Chair, one final comment, just to build on that a little bit, as having a city council that was Zoom bombed on Thursday last week, it shook us up. And we thought that time was past, but it did make us think about what are our policies and all, and how do we balance public access and participation. So in effect, we aren't changing it. We're not keeping people from offering comments via Zoom, but we have at least trained staff a little bit to say, what is it that you can shut down right away? For example, use of expletives, but hate speech, you cannot. And so things that frankly we're shocked and then a little thrown off. So, but it's in the context of, we want participation in public access, but where the guardrails are is tough sometimes.
Okay, all right, so we have a motion and a second, and I think that's time for a vote.
All right, Director Meadows,
Yes.
Showalter,
Yes.
Scozola,
Yes.
Klein,
Yes.
Tyson,
Yes.
Martinez Beltran,
Yes.
it's unanimous.
All right, so now we move on to item 6, which is input on timing to solidify proposals of the community space at Silicon Valley Energy Headquarters.
Can I start before the rest of the staff presents? I just want to let you know that it's been a year since we bought this building.
That's great.
Yesterday, we had our kickoff meeting with the contractors. The board approved the contract last week, or they gave me the authority to execute a contract. We're hoping to start construction real soon. Excited. Contractors seem to think that they can be in by the summer, and so that's really, really exciting. But I just want to make sure that before we start presentations, to just give a real strong kind of kudos and acknowledgement to Zoe and Jessica Conejo, who knew nothing about this. Remember when I told you guys this is not my wheelhouse? Well, it wasn't. I could not have done this had it not been for Jessica and Zoe, who really took on this effort and got us to where we are today. And so, even though it feels like it's been a long time and we haven't made any progress, at least that's what I say. There's been a lot of progress, and I'm pretty excited about sharing with you the next phase and what we're going to do there as well. So with that, I'll hand it over to Steph.
Thank you. All right, I'm just gonna do some intro comments, and Jess is gonna walk through the detail of the presentation. So here, the high level recommendation. One is a year ago when we did the in-person session, which was much less than a year ago, where we gathered everybody's input on what to do with the community space. That was before we had started the financial levers conversation. It was before we had started the decarbonization roadmap conversation. It was before we knew exactly how much the building was going to cost. And so we wanted to, after that meeting, we said that we would come back about now with ideas for the community space. However, you'll see our key recommendation here is really that we take time to evaluate the staffing resources and the financial resources and bring back a really fully vetted proposal after we have completed those two other basically strategic initiatives, so that they are aligned with what our long-term goals are. That's kind of the overall synopsis of our recommendation and why we're bringing it here today. But we wanted to really, because we said we were going to come back now, make sure we had a conversation and got your direction, how you'd like us to proceed. All right, I'm going to hand it over to you, Jessica.
Great. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, board. As Monica mentioned, I'm Jess Cornejo, and I'm the Decarb and Community Strategies lead at SVCE, a part of the buildings team. So I'll be taking on the rest of the presentation, and then Zoe and I will tag team kind of the discussion after. But we did want to kind of just do some level setting and let you know what staff has been working on. So just as a quick recap, we have split the building into 2 phases. Phase 1 prioritizes the office space and the board chamber, while phase 2 will cover the community space. For phase 1, we have submitted our second round of permit responses to the city. And as Monica mentioned, we held our kickoff meeting with Beals Martin and Associates, the general contracting firm that the board approved in last month's board meeting. Next slide. So just a high level snapshot of the budget with the building purchase, vendor support, construction, and other miscellaneous items. We are looking at an estimated total spend of about 21 million. Now, the board originally approved 20 million for the building in 2024, and in December 2025 approved an additional 5.5 million to the budget. So with our total estimated spends, we have about 5 million scoped out remaining in the bucket. I will say one good note is that the construction costs actually came in almost 1 million lower than anticipated. So that provides us a little bit more wiggle room on what we could do with the community space. Next slide.
There too, that when we went in December with that additional ask for 5.5 million, it was explicitly because we didn't know where those construction costs would come in. So I think that also relates to the timing of any future or additional improvements. Hi, Jess.
Okay. All right, so at the start of the year, staff has hit the ground running with the construction contract, having the kickoff meeting, and now we are looking towards starting construction. A key date that we wanted to highlight is that we'll need to move out from our current office and into the new building in July while moving in the board in August. So we anticipate phase 1 being fully operational by the end of this year. Next slide. So we are presenting 2 options to you all today. Option 1 would be to bring recommendations on the community space in financial year 26-27, which would mean we would come back to you all in June 2026 of this year. Option 2 would be to come back in financial year 27-28, which would give us more time, and we would return to you all in June 2027. Staff does recommend option 2, as this would allow us to assess the building post move-in, how's it going, how staff is acclimating, and also conduct a budget analysis and gain further feedback from the community. Overall, just allow us to do further due diligence so that we create a really intentional community space. Next slide. Okay, so in May 2025, staff held a board feedback session, which many of you participated in. The purpose of that workshop was to solicit super early feedback on the building of what you all were envisioning. And so the options on the left were some ideas that came up, such as a reservable room for community groups to rent out, an all-electric demonstration kitchen, and a contractor training space. And so we've been doing some early scoping out of what this would take, and the right side of the table lists further considerations that we'll need to dive into to further assess the potential pathways. Next slide. All right, so based on the discussion today, staff can develop a timeline, estimate a cost, and assess other actions that could help develop a proposal for the community space, depending on where we land in terms of timing and coming back to you all. And so with that, I think Zoe and I can lead the discussion and answer any questions. Oh, and then again, recommendation to come back in financial year 27-28.
Great. All right, so we have questions from committee members? Everybody's thinking a little bit. Okay.
Comments.
Do we have comments?
Sure, I got a comment. I just want to kick off saying I do agree that more time feels good to me. I agree with staff's recommendations, especially, budget analysis and more feedback from the community. That's super key. So wholly agree with the staff recommendations.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. So I'm hearing it. So I likely support the recommendation. I still have a couple questions. So first, I heard it tied into sort of the strategic exercises, which I assume then means you're looking at what sort of FTE connotations might come from the strategies, or what other reasons would those matter?
You put the table back
Yep.
up there.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think slides actually are helpful in terms of showing kind of what
I
some
didn't
of
look
these
at the
things were.
appendix.
Oh, yeah.
Because it shows some of the voting, because I don't think you were there, right?
I was there for the,
I think this is a good one because,
this was the 12th
and
or
I'll
the
let
year ago.
Zoe add some here too, but
Yeah, I was there.
along with the budget analysis that we're doing with the financial levers, we're also doing and we always do this, by the way, is the real assessment of staffing needs.
Right.
And so that's something that we intend to bring to the executive committee in the future as well, is kind of just like, how have we grown and where will we grow, right? But in this process of building the decarb roadmap and the financial levers, if it all directions say that we want to have a greater presence in the community and demonstrate all this stuff and be like an educational hub and all that stuff, then we might go one way, and that would require us to staff up and then go a different path. I don't know if you want to add anything.
Yeah, and I'd say there will be budgeting and staff requirements for any of the options that we do. And since we're going through this exercise about what should our program budget look like? Should it go up? Should it go down? And all of these other things, it seems just logical to make this process align afterwards instead of potentially doing a bunch of work and committing us to additional initiatives that were not
Right,
yet
and I just wanted to clarify, I totally agree with that, but it sounded more in the presentation, which is, and this makes a lot of sense too, we're gonna move in and see how it works. And then we'll give you real world feedback. I think both are valid, I just heard two different things and I just wanted to hear your explicit explanation. Both are relevant, correct? Yeah.
And there is another alternative too, like we just have the space be there, a passive space. Like we don't have it be something other than just space. And that doesn't require staffing or anything to just have the space be there.
Bags and lava lamps, that's good.
And that kind of ties into my next question, which is you're not proposing holding up the move-in phase 1 completion. And so for some period of time, at least if we recommend and then the board accepts option 2, you're gonna have blank space anyway.
Yes, and there is about 1 quadrant of the downstairs building that is open. It will be semi-finished because we need to do that for health and safety purposes, but it won't have daily functioning purposes.
Yeah, and also when I looked at, you show on the slide examples of concepts discussed a year ago, a little over, or May 25th, anyway, whenever it was. You spell out more considerations than I think we really had in mind when we did the DOT exercise. So I think you can refine it just like you've done in this slide. Like you say, reservable community space requires a different permit and we need to think about our parking. And do we need to have dedicated staff and be accessible outside typical work? I mean, those are big questions. And so I don't think our DOT exercise related to those very important implementation questions, those were not the same thing. So I think you can take your proposals and this kind of detail and then have a second round, because our opinions would potentially all change as we look at, I mean, do you want to have the space open on a Sunday evening?
Security.
Yeah, with security, I mean, you know, but anyway, so that's, so it helps people to understand the framework which you're making the proposal.
Okay, we have several people who want to speak. We'll start with Director Martinez Beltran.
Thank you, Chair. I just, I think a good point to, I support the recommendation for option 2. And I think a good thing maybe to point out when bringing it to the board is there was no really strong winning recommendation on what exactly to do with the space. And so now it almost feels like that opportunity has passed. So since we're here, I think it's a great opportunity, especially as a planner, to see the circulation and how people live in it. And, maybe that will influence what we look for in the future. So I think it's a great recommendation and I support it.
Great. Chair Klein?
Sure. So just to clarify, and I just want to make sure the options are clear. We're basically saying recommend, to be clear from the motion that's expected, staff brings recommendation, option 1 and option 2. Staff bring, what are we calling it? Community space recommendations. Is that also including staffing or all this is tied in, and all this would be conceivably, and I'm trying to remember our timing because our budget's always a little odd, would be in August of 2026 or August of 2027.
Yes, so we bring the budget to the board for approval and typically in September.
September.
For next, and so it comes to.
I always forget the date, start date and all that.
It'll come to the finance committee typically in June and the executive committee in June as well. So that would be the time that we bring it.
Okay, I appreciate that. And that was my main question. I do have a comment before we move forward. And I think you visited Sonoma Clean Energy has a space during the holidays on my trip north, I ended up to make sure I spent an hour there kind of visiting and talking to, they had just bought the CEO of Sonoma Clean Energy. They had just bought the building actually the week before, although they've been there for over a year. It was interesting to see how they continued to change the usage of that space and how popular some of their programs like the induction cooking demonstration kitchen have been and all this. So I do think that, you know, not programming the space and doing a little bit more, especially when you start looking at permits and other things, that flexibility, you know, and kind of doing those trade-offs, because some of these required permits, some of these didn't, you know, and we had the same issue from our city hall of how do we make certain portions accessible overnight, and then, or like if we want to make it available to the community in the evenings or late afternoons, and with minimal, like, okay, all you need to do is close this door or something of that nature. So there's lots of questions that we're dealing with from a city standpoint that I do think is important. But in talking to Sonoma Clean Energy, they've activated that space and have changed that, continue to change that. So as we're defining kind of next steps, I do think that there's a value even in the board members too. If you happen to be in Sonoma, go by and see that space, because I do think it's important to envision, you know, looking back at what we decided last May. Looking back at what we were discussing last May, the concept of contractor training, and especially in talking to Sonoma's like, do we really want to try to be a training center, or just showing both contractors and residents, here's the different, and not, here's, you know, what a, from battery storage, you know, wall storage, you know, showing them, you know, heat pumps and kind of a little bit of everything, as opposed to, well, this is how you install it and all that. That's a whole other task that I don't think has benefits to the community, but something that a community college would be far better at the end of the day, from, you know, continued training and all that. But so it's an educational, it's a workable space, it's a demonstration space. And I do think that there's conceivably value in a non-quorum part of the board going up and seeing that, because I do think it changed my mind just taking photos and all that of conceivably what that space looks like, and hearing how it's like initially, because they actually have staff there, and this is one of our long-term staffing questions of answering questions about if people have about billing and how we manage that. They actually have bilingual speakers at the front. The speakers used to be at the back of the building, and now they're like, oh no, we want them up here. And they have kids areas just to keep the kids busy while so there's lots of good things that conceivably can be learned, and trying to define all that before September, I don't think is reasonable for this organization. So I appreciate that, you know, getting a clean space that we can utilize, and, you know, and for board meetings as well as, you know, certain events, you know, rent and expand into. I do think that has a lot of value, but I appreciate where we are now as far as this is concerned, and I'll get off my soapbox.
Dr. Tyson?
You left very little soap left. Those were really good points have come up, and I'm just going to say yes. I think what the staff is saying is, you know, this thing is a lot more complicated, and so you give us permission to do the stuff we know what to do and get ourselves situated while we figure out the rest. That's a short way of saying kind of what you said, but I think it's great to go see these things. There's so many failed efforts, so many good, well-intentioned things that don't necessarily give us bang for the buck. And it's funny, I had my town's environmental initiatives committee, it's volunteers, and I'm the council representative last night. And they're doing the same thing we are. They're sitting there saying, how do we get people to change? How do we motivate? What works? And so just last night at this meeting, they said, did you know that the TVA has this new program and they bought 10,000 heat pump water heaters? I said, no, I don't know anything about that. that Palo Alto has got this new emphasis on outreach. And I don't know how that's going. I know they're being much better at water.
I'm meeting with them today.
We'll find out more about that. And then one of our members was part of the most recent Actera Green Home Tour, and he spoke with great gusto, which frankly every home tour leader has, as far as I've seen, about what it's like to have people come in and see his stuff and say, what contractor did you use and how did you do pipe this? And I think rather than a fixed place, those green home tours, and they're coming all the time, seem like great places. Bruce Carney opened up his home, that same sequence I went to it. So anyway, I think there's a lot of ideas, and so let's not commit before we get a better sense of what may work. And long term, have the flexibility that, and let's try to do the flexibility the easy way without committing too much in fixed infrastructure as we do.
Thank you. After those two glorious soapbox speeches, I have the last little sliver here in my hand. I just wanted to add, or actually do have a quick question. I'm curious because you brought up a really great point. Is that people have been trying these things already, and so you both are saying this, and so especially with the contractors, that's the one thing I really want to focus on, because when I can't remember who came up with the idea in the first place, doesn't matter, but I thought, brilliant, that's great, we're all trying to train contractors, but to utilize the space, we don't want to have a failure there, and I then it just keyed me into the idea of, well, have we done any, I know we have programs, a lot of programs for outreach, and we have the training programs for contractors specifically, but do we have maybe you brought up community colleges and how they're obviously the best qualified for training, especially for these kinds of things. Do we have any outreach there? Do we have any materials or any communication with, just local community colleges that are trying to train, this next generation's workforce? And if we can get in really, I say this time and time again with our high school programs, we're always trying to educate, but do we have anything like that?
Yeah, so we brought something to the executive committee a couple of months ago, Pam did, on our efforts working with the community college, our failed efforts working with the community college. We had an initiative with the one in Saratoga and a couple of the community.
Oh, West Valley.
Yeah, so we can, we'll resurface that and send it to you, the presentation.
Yeah, please.
What we've done and what we've tried to do and what we plan to do going forward.
It's a bummer hearing it was a failure, but maybe try again. I don't know, third time's a charm. I say don't give up at least.
No, we haven't, and we do a lot of other stuff with educational groups too, and I think there's also a place for that space to be used for educational purposes. I think that's something that resonates with us as staff and also in some communities. But we are in Sunnyvale, and our service territory goes all the way to Gilroy.
Right.
I don't think they'll be coming to Sunnyvale just to see us.
Sure.
So we also have to recognize that too. But I also wanted to add to Director Tyson's, Chair Tyson's point, but the other thing that we've learned and is that our dream home is quite popular, and another good way to get out in the community and go out there to them. We can go to Gilroy, we can go anywhere with that thing. So
you can park it in the empty community space.
I asked.
I was saying.
But after I learned the city's permitting process.
Parking across the street at City Line.
Moving every 72 hours.
Only I had some connection.
All right, I just want to add that I found over the years that thinking takes time. We all, seriously, we all are so busy with sort of day-to-day activities that just things that are a little deeper in your brain, they take time. And so I think the idea of living in the building for 6 months before you decide what you want to use with the space for is really good. It kind of, okay, so that's really good. So that brings us to the end of the meeting. And we have, right?
We need a motion.
We need a motion. Whoops, and we probably need public comment. We need public comment. Is there anybody available for public comment? No. Okay, so we need a motion to accept, what's the motion?
I move staff brings recommendations for the community. Second, make sure I'm correct. The wording, absolutely correct. Thank you. Community space to our for fiscal year 2027, 2028.
All right,
Second.
okay, so we have a motion and a second. Vote please.
Klein,
Yes.
Martinez Beltran,
Yes.
Joe Welter,
Yes.
Tyson,
Yes.
Meadows.
Yes.
Squizzle.
Hi.
Thank you. Carries unanimously.
All right, very good. Okay, now we move on to committee and staff remarks. And I have two announcements that I want to share. A little bragging or sharing. One is that the restoration of Pond A2W, which is our largest salt pond that's adjacent to Shoreline Park in the bay off of Mountain View. That restoration has met a pivotal point. We have breached 4 locations two into Stevens Creek and 2 into Permanente Creek, which are on either side. And that means that now the tides are bringing sort of sediment-laden water into the pond on every tidal cycle. And they are pushing out crystal clear water on every tidal cycle after the sediment-laden water has gone into that quiet space and the sediment trickles down and separates out. That is how the bottom is built up. And when we get to what is called marsh plain elevation, which we think may take quite a while because it's pretty subsided, it might take 10 years. But when it does that in a flash, plants develop and you have a marsh, and that's when you have that incredible protective force of a wetland, which is really Mother Nature's sponge, which is, yeah, I got quoted on that. It took me a long time to figure out the sponge thing, but the sponge is it absorbs a lot of water and it absorbs a lot of wave energy. So that's how it's protective. And then just the icing on the cake that I think all of us are going to have, or many of us are going to have a lot of fun with, is that the Stevens Creek Trail is growing 1.2 miles out into the bay. And we will have a grand opening on that because the trail is being extended out into the levee that's on the Stevens Creek side. There are bridges over the breaches that have been, they're built culverts. And so it's essentially bridged over that breach. So it will be really fun to ride our bikes out there and go look at birds and all that sort of stuff. And there'll be a grand opening on February 20th. And so that's one thing I wanted to say. And then I serve on the Bay Conservation and Development Commission, and we have permitting power for anything in the bay and within the 100-foot band of the bay. And last week, the Corps of Engineers came to us for their re-up of their dredging permit policy. And this time, unlike all the other times, the emphasis now is on beneficial reuse and in-bay disposal of dredged materials. For the last 50 years or so, the vast majority of dredged materials have been deposited out at the fair lawns. And where it does nobody any good. And we need 450 million cubic yards of dirt it's estimated, to do the restoration and the sea level rise protection projects that we're going to need in the Bay Area. So we don't want to be sending any of that potential construction material unnecessarily out as a waste product. So we got this change through lots of advocacy through the National League of Cities, the local people, you name it, all over the country, people were advocating to increase beneficial use. It was put into the WRDA 2024 bill that the Corps would now have a goal of using 70% for beneficial use. Well, we're not there yet. They're going to just try it this time. They're going to go for They're going for 40, I think, if I remember, it's 40. But anyway, that's a huge improvement. And it's not always we hear that our advocacy actually made a difference, on the environmental side. So I want to share that it's a truth benefit, advocacy worked. Yay. So I just want to share that.
And engineering is a magnificent kind of thing.
Yeah. Geeky things can be cool. Yeah.
Amen.
I have a brief update. I don't know if Bruce is still online or not now. He has invited me to attend the Silicon Valley Youth Climate Action Mountain View Los Altos pickup breakfast on Sunday morning. And all but one of the young people in that committee are from Los Altos, it turns out. I'm not sure why that is, but so I am going to go and either inspire them or they will inspire me, or a little bit of both. So I will report back on that next time.
Anything else? Okay, so with that, the meeting is adjourned at 2:30.
Okay.
Bye, have a good weekend.
Bye.